When you want to build a project or start on something in general, I often have a lot of trouble to actually start. A while ago we mentioned breaking things up into smaller things to make it realistic to achieve. But how do you plan out the start of a project, since I always get stuck there? So for me, it's very important to start with the end goal. So for instance, what I'm coding on now is something that I had a lot of time getting started with, or rather like getting momentum. So it's the thing that you're watching here, the little thing that changes the title. That's quite a complicated thing to do. It's a lot of moving parts. There's a little admin that I use here where I change the title, that where moderators can sign in with their Twitch account, and then it checks if they are moderators, and then the overlay itself is a little React app that changes title watching a Firebase thing. What helped for me was to very clearly define what it was I wanted to do. I wanted to have something that showed the title on the screen because I wanted people to know what I was working on. And I wanted moderators as well to be able to update that title for me while I was coding. We're still not quite there yet, because we actually have to make this a little bit reliable and decide which of the moderators do it and have a little bit of flow. But right now it's actually there. I did it. Yeah, so start with what you want to do and why, like a sentence of that. And that's important, because otherwise I tend to be paralyzed. I tend to just start like setting up a project. Maybe I should add some TypeScript. Maybe I should. I also find that defer coding a little bit. Start drawing. I do a lot of drawing. So I made whatever is your poison, but for me it just helps to do sketches. So they look a little bit like this. I have these sketches that kind of show where I want to go. They're not meant to be super detailed or correct. I try to not spend too, like, they are just mock-ups. But they are enough for me to get a sense of direction and like get a clear picture in my head. So this here is the thing that, like, focusing on that. And then just time boxing it. So I want this feature done for this stream. And in addition, lower your quality standards. Because I initially I failed at this project because I wanted to make it like according to all the standards that I'm used to at Spotify, where we did everything with unit test and everything has to be like pull requested and everything la 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 la. And I just got so distracted in that, and it just took so much time that I just didn't make enough progress for me to be motivated. When I just decided to just aim for the end goal very, very fast, or not like the end goal, but like the next milestone, just get that out. I created like a boost, like a reward in my brain that was like, wow, I actually got something out. And that made me just very, very happy, showing something off to David and people on stream, and like, oh, it's out there. Dedicated, do you think TDD would help here or only add to the distraction? For me, like, as much as I believe in TDD, getting rid of that in this case actually helped in getting the project out. And I feel now that I added TypeScript that I'm not sure if it was a good idea or not, because now I have these quality problems that I have to deal with, and I'm getting distracted by it a lot. So I'm a bit uncertain. Be very, very skeptical to adding these quality constraints on your project. When it comes to refactoring and TypeScript and unit tests and stuff, I think it's important to, at least for me, to defer that after the work unit is done. So once you have like the thing working, like your unit, like now it's functioning, then you're allowed to do quality work on it. And you might wonder then, how does that work with TDD? Like, because test-driven development is that you write code only when you have a test that requires it. And the only thing like that has really worked for me is to throw away the code. I write these prototype implementations that boom run for the happy path, making sure that everything works or not everything works, like the main case works, like the basic path, it renders stuff. And then and it works for logging in the main user. It doesn't work for any of the other cases. And then I implement like maybe 1 or 2 more cases, and then the thing works, And then once you have that, we start finding like, okay, this component now we can start adding TypeScript to this, and we can start adding unit tests to this, and then you have like these little bits of progress. Because if you don't, you end up in this situation where you never get that reward feeling from working. It's so important for you to feel that you're making progress. And if you have like a lot of guards in place in the initial stages, you're just fighting all of them until like something is on screen and producing value. They kind of like, they are good later when you have like a project and you can like, when the thing is set up and you want to add like this little thing, then the TDD will start making sense from a reward standpoint, but not in the early stages. I think that it is valid to go for a very prototypey approach in the beginning, just to get things out, because you're probably gonna write the wrong thing anyway. You're probably gonna write entire modules that you just discover are like, this is not what we needed at all, so you're gonna throw it away anyway. So yeah, just try to write code of throwaway quality, maybe even intentionally, so you don't feel too bad about throwing it away when you're TDDing it. And it also makes TDD a lot easier when you know how the APIs work. TDD for me is very, very hard to do when I'm unfamiliar with APIs. Dedicated, I already figured out that TS helps me. It creates some calmness in the chaos. Yeah, it does in a sense. I find that I get a lot of anxiety when I work in too big of a ball of work, where hours and hours go by when I don't actually know if what I'm doing is working, if everything is too much. So I think it's like super, super important to work in as small units as possible. It does help to get TDD when the problem is very challenging and needs to be broken down into small pieces in order to get the concept together in your head. I find that TypeScript and TDD help in the same way that when there's a lot of cases that you need to ensure are working, which is the case for any software really. But they are both very bad when you just need to get to that first feeling of having a working thing. So when it comes to motivation in small projects, and especially when you're alone, is getting to the project and like getting the thing out there, and like it's a clicky thing, and like, wow, we have something. Is very like, then it's best to just let all the guards go and write the prototype first. But first version is crap, and then use that as a basis for your next version, because it's so fast to write anyway. It's all a matter of not saving the shitty code. As long as you do that, you're fine. Other than ignoring TDD and type, what other ways are there to create tight feedback loops? I find that be very, very careful about introducing new tools to your tool chain as part of your project. Don't try to just like pick just exactly the same tools that you use for your last project that you're well aware of, that will work sort of okay. And if you want to try out something new because you feel like it would be suitable, just pick one new tool. Don't change your process around. It's a lesson that I had from video production, is that if you change something around, it's going to break and it's going to require a lot of time fixing. It's extremely useful to rely on the same thing that you're always using. Whenever I walk into this room, I just turn on the computer and hit the stream button, and everything works because everything is set up in an extremely predictable way. If I change something around, like you start using like the overhead camera here, or like tweak something around, things fall apart and I have to fix them. And that is important because you want to evolve, and if you just rely on the same tools all the time, you just stagnate, and what you create stagnates. So it's important to have change in your process. But in order to get shit done, rely on the tools that you know well, even if they're not the ideal tool. Doug Pagani, I think forging a proof of concept is important in clarifying your tests for your real development, which makes TDD easier. Otherwise, it's hard to imagine what behavior we actually want. Yeah, I think that that summarizes my position really well. We should not be afraid of doing proof of concepts. Kisser6 says, I created a server that restarts itself on its own every time I save a file. It takes 50 milliseconds to see the results. I actually invested some in some code getting that to work. It gives me a tighter feedback loop. That's a very good point. It's so important that your project is set up in such a way that you're not waiting minutes to see things. You need immediate feedback. You all like having things like the Create React app, which gives you immediate feedback of like on screen, like, oh, now it works. It is so important. See, like if it takes more than a few seconds to know that you're making progress, then it is definitely a good idea to spend some time in getting a test runner up or auto refreshing if you're working on front-end code. That's really, really nice. That is also why, like, when it comes back to TDD and you're writing like a backend thing, and if it's purely a backend thing, then TDD might actually be a good idea, especially if I like a test runner like Wallaby, which is super, super refreshing and giving a sense of progression. That's really, really nice. If you think the feedback loop ends the moment you push the code, you're wrong. The feedback loop ends the moment you get feedback from the customer stakeholders. Yeah, I mean, this feedback cycle might still continue even after that. I think it's important to think about dopamine here. The reasons why games are fun is that they have this very short reward loop. You hit like the right amount of buttons, gives you a reward. You see like, oh, I did the right thing. That's good. That's very inherent to us as humans. And that is why I eventually had to quit Spotify, because I was just working on this thing that like it was rolled out to a billion people, but I didn't see them, didn't know really what. Like I was so disconnected from like the actual value I was producing. You need to like figure out a way to actually feel that what I am doing is valuable. I'm in the right direction. And we are simple creatures, so that sometimes has to be very, very direct, you know. And if there is somebody else using your thing, even if it's just your co-founder or a friend that is gradually testing out your work, and you're sending it and them clicking on it, then that might be enough. We need to have that constant reward. Dedicated. Yeah, but what would be a new feedback loop for a bug fix patch? I don't think that like feedback loops are that complicated on a bug fix. I mean, if the bug is complicated, then it might be a little bit tricky. But like, let me show you a little bit how I think when it comes to bugs. So, in order to keep myself motivated in bug fixing, I try to like start asking questions, right? So I ask like, okay, so the event is not getting triggered. And then I ask myself why. And I write these things in a document. Because this way I can kind of like abort my process and go grab a cup of coffee and still get into it. Plus I'm super easily distracted. So, and then I write like a theory. Like, could it be in the Twitch API? Is the event triggered in the first place? And then I just write, how can we test this? And then I answer that question, add an event, like a log in the top of event handler. And then I do that, and I find out that nope, the event is getting triggered. Error is somewhere else. And sometimes I just write, when I don't know what to write, I just like go like until like just to keep my flow going, because somebody told me once that creativity is in the fingers. And then I write, okay, maybe it is in the database, right? And then I answer that question. How do we test that? I answer that question, put a log there, and so like I tend to like narrow bugs down. So I start like, could the error be here? No. Okay, but like maybe the error is way down here, and I'm like, no, it's fine here. So it has to be somewhere in between here. It's fine here. It's fine here. So then I start like gradually narrowing it down until like I find the bug to solve. If you're familiar with search algorithms, it's sort of like making a binary search in the bug, so to speak, like conceptually. And working in this way allows me to feel like I'm making progress even though I'm failing all the time. So it like feels like I'm getting quite closer to the problem. let's see. Kessler6 says, what did he say? Kessler6 says, there's a spiral of feedback loops. There are multiple feedback loops, one inside another. It starts with pressing a key on the keyboard, ends with money in your bank from a paying customer. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's so important to be able to segment feedback loops, so you don't deal with all the loops at the same time, because then that becomes a problem. This is why I'm such an advocate of adding like linting and styling as separate steps. So that I can work on code first, making it work, and then I run the linter to like find stuff that is like a little bit off. So the linter still catches like errors, but styling stuff that never goes red in my editor, so that I'm not like starting to do like these little tweaks, because then the main unit of work takes more time, or like everything becomes baked into a ball. Yeah, that's my thoughts. Focus on being on getting something out there fast, but don't start working. Start like drawing up like what it is that you want to do, and write a description of what it is and why you want to do it, and try to keep it minimal. Like try to make the smallest possible thing. Don't worry about quality in the beginning. Write a proof of concept to get the entire thing working, and then once that is working, use that as basis for your nice TypeScript TDD project. And think about like the dopamine loops. Think about setting up your environment so that you get to success as fast as possible. The closer you can make your environment work like a computer game, the better. Yeah. And if you're solving a bug, break it down into little problems and like view it as an investigation. That's my advice on that. Hello, hope you enjoyed that clip. If you like this kind of content, do consider joining our Discord at funfun.chat and jump into maybe the On the Job channel or the Self-Care channel. They are really, really nice spaces where you like it. The whole Fun chat is such a cuddly and nice atmosphere where we support each other and have a very good time. It's very big and very active. I think we're close to 1,400 members now. So I think that you should join the Fun family. Or maybe you just feel like watching more videos right now, and then you should check out this one.